Hi there, I'm John from CNCKing.com, and today we make custom rubber stamps for the 5212 and the 5211. Now I've done a ton of videos showcasing what each one of these ones is capable of doing and the stamps and so forth. For this project here, it's a little bit different than the normal because the customer has their own ink. And that means that they don't want to use the ink that Trodat sells with their stamps. They have a specialized ink that they want to use, specific color, Pantone color or something like that, for their application. So they needed these stamps, but they needed them without any ink in the ink pad. And a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually get that. So this is what an ink pad looks like when it has no ink in it. So what the customer will be doing is they have their own ink, they just put it in the pad until they get saturation point. After that, they just leave these things in there a little bit so that the ink pad develops, a shape for the stamp, and then they go ahead and stamp all they want. So the advantage of that is Trodat has, generic color, so to speak, for their stamps. But if you wanted something that was completely different, you can actually make it as well. When it comes to making custom rubber stamps, whether it's traditional or self-inking, the process is always the same, and basically regardless of the thickness of the rubber as well. We've made custom rubber stamps for like a wallpaper company, and they use the big rollers, and they use 1/4 inch thick rubber, and we've engraved large sheets of that stuff with our laser. Now in that case there, it's 1/4 inch, and that holds even more heat than the 1/8 inch you see here. And what happens with that, it wants to bubble up. So we got to do a lot of processes and other things to make sure it doesn't get too hot and starts to bubble. Now in this case here, it's 1/8 inch Trodat rubber, and it laser engraves wonderfully. The resolution is fantastic, but customers always try to send us files that are not vector based. And I keep emphasizing to them that if it's not vector based, it's a JPEG. And the problem with JPEG is you have anti-aliasing, you have a whole bunch of artifacts in the image. And you can't really do anything with that because it gets translated to the stamp. And unless you want something that looks like a Super Mario rubber stamp, it doesn't come out very nice and clearly when you actually stamp with it. So if you have a need for a custom rubber stamp, try to get a vector base. If you don't have that, have a very, very high resolution JPEG or TIFF or a Targa file. And from that, I can actually generate a pretty accurate vector automatically through the software. But it's not the same as having a true vector. You'll notice for small little areas, sometimes they get rounded when they're supposed to be sharp and that kind of stuff when you do a translation or conversion of the file. And regardless of the stamp that we're making, it's always the same process. Laser engrave first, after that we do the cutting, and then it's done and ready to go. In this case here, we cut 2 rubber stamps and it came out perfectly. Now typically for stamps as well, I generally test them in the shop before sending them out. In this case here, I can't really do that. I've made enough stamps so I know just by looking at it, this works or this doesn't work. And the most obvious way to realize that is when you look at it, here's a smaller stamp. So if you see a little bit of surface area all the way around here, that means that surface area is what the ink will pick up, and it works perfectly. If that surface area is too thin, like a needle point or something like that, there's not enough surface area. But if there's just a little bit more, then you're fine. Now, of course, these are oversized. So here's I'll use the ink pad, it's a little bit easier. So you can see that this is obviously oversized for what they're using it for. And the reason for that is because I always tell customers, if you're not sure which stamping mechanism to get from Trodat, just get the next level up, because right now you're doing this project. Well, you don't know in a month or now, or a year from now, or 2 years or 5 years from now, what you'll be stamping. Hopefully it's the same stuff, but maybe something different. Maybe it's something larger, these kind of things. If you already have the larger one, well then you have a lot more flexibility when it comes to making future stamps. Because yes, my company makes just these as well, and we just ship these out. And it's quite easy to switch them around. I'll just show you on the 5212. because it's a larger stamp to videotape. So there's little tabs on the edge here, and that allows you to lock it in. Now what you see under here, the shininess is actually a piece of plastic. And what you do is you peel that off, and you have double-sided tape. And all you do is line up this with this for your specific application, because again, for them, it's custom ink, but also a custom application for the stamp. So normally what I do is I put this right in the center, and it works all great. But for them, depending on the placement, they might need it like a little bit offset here, there, there. So I said, you know, I'll just ship it to you this way, and then you could place it exactly where you need it to be for repeatability for your application. Anyways, once you have a rubber stamp here, all you do is peel it off, and you put the next stamp on, and you just press it in. Now, there's an advantage and disadvantage to that. So here's the ink pad. So after a while, this ink pad will have the imprint of this. And that's actually a good thing, because it means that the ink spreads out evenly across the rubber stamp. The disadvantage to that is now you have an imprint here. It's not permanent, but you have an imprint here with the ink pad. So let's say you switch to a different design. Let's just use this for, I have this right now. If you use this, well, then you still have the old imprint on there. So it just takes a little bit of while for the ink pad to sort of realize that this rubber stamp is different and to mold itself a little bit better for the next stamp, and then you're fine. This is why I also tell customers that, you know, if you have two things to do, like this case here, the customer was thinking, you know, why don't I just buy this and just keep switching out the rubber stamps? Well, eventually this double-sided tape no longer becomes double-sided tape. It eventually just becomes tape. And then you got to take that off and then apply another double-sided tape. It's a whole headache. So for that reason, and the ink pad sort of working better over time as it imprints the stamp, it's better to go that way. Have two stamps, then just have one and switch them around. So if you're looking for custom rubber stamps, contact me at CNCKing.com. We'll make them for you and ship them right to your door.